They say kindness costs nothing. But for Chenise Williams, a single mother in Charlotte, North Carolina, that kindness nearly cost her everything, or so she thought. On a quiet, ordinary night at Jerry's Diner, Chenise made a simple choice. She broke the rules to serve one last tired customer wearing a baseball cap. She had no idea that customer was Michael Jordan. She had no idea she was being watched. And she certainly had no idea that getting fired the next morning would become the best thing that ever happened to her. This is the story of how one act of kindness changed not just one life, but an entire community. It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest dreams come true when you're not even looking for them, and that getting knocked down can be the beginning of something truly beautiful. Chenise's feet were killing her as she wiped down the last table at Jerry's Diner. The clock on the wall read 11:45 p.m. She had been on her feet for over 12 hours, running between tables, refilling drinks, and forcing smiles even when her back ached. But she couldn't stop yet, not when her 8-year-old daughter Destiny was counting on her. That morning, Destiny had looked up at her with those big brown eyes full of hope. "Mama, can I please go to basketball camp this summer? Coach says I'm getting really good." The memory made Chenise's chest tighten. $500. That's what the camp cost. It meant more double shifts and less sleep, but seeing her little girl light up whenever she talked about basketball made every tired night worth it. She paused for a second, pulled out her phone, and stared at the photo of Destiny in her basketball jersey, smiling wide with a ball under her arm. Chenise's eyes grew soft. She whispered to herself, "I'll fight for your dreams, baby, just like Mom taught me." Her own mother had always said, kindness was the one thing you never lose by giving away. Those words kept her going on nights like this. The bell above the door suddenly chimed. Chenise turned, ready to say they were closed, but the words caught in her throat. A tall man in a baseball cap and dark jacket stepped inside. Even with his shoulders slumped, he looked well over 6.5 feet. He had the tired eyes of someone who had carried a heavy day. Brad, her manager, had strict rules. No customers after 11:30. Kitchen closed, no exceptions. But something about this man stopped her. He didn't look like trouble. He just looked worn out, like he needed a quiet place to sit and breathe. Deep down, Chenise felt that familiar stubborn pull in her chest, the same quiet determination that always won over fear. She wasn't going to turn him away. Not tonight. "Come on in, sir," Chenise said gently, grabbing a menu from behind the counter. "Everyone deserves a warm meal, no matter how late it is. Just try to order quick if you can. The kitchen's about to shut down." The man gave a small, grateful smile. His eyes softened with quiet thanks as she led him to a booth in the back corner, away from the windows. Even as she walked, Chenise knew she was breaking the rules, but that hidden resolve inside her refused to let her do anything else. For her daughter, for the memory of her mother, and for this tired stranger who clearly needed kindness tonight. Chenise led the tall stranger to a quiet booth in the back corner, far from the windows and any passing headlights. The dim overhead light cast soft shadows across his face as he slid into the seat, shoulders still hunched like the weight of the world was pressing down on him. She could tell he was trying to stay unnoticed, but something about his quiet exhaustion pulled at her heart. Even though every part of her wanted to flip the closed sign and go home, she stayed. "What can I get started for you, sir?" she asked, pen ready on her notepad. He ordered a black coffee and asked for a dinner recommendation. Chenise smiled warmly. "Our chicken and waffles are the real deal around here. My little girl Destiny swears they're the best in Charlotte. She might be biased because her mama makes them, but I think they'll hit the spot." As the food sizzled in the kitchen, Chenise moved quickly, wiping tables while keeping one eye on her customer. The man sat in silence, staring out into the dark street, his large hands wrapped around the warm mug like it was the only comfort he had left tonight. There was a quiet sadness in his posture that made her wonder what kind of long day he'd had. When the plate finally arrived, she set it down carefully with extra napkins and a bottle of hot sauce. The smell of crispy chicken and sweet waffles filled the air between them. The man looked up, his tired eyes meeting hers. "Aren't you afraid of getting in trouble for serving me this late?" he asked, voice low and gentle. Chenise met his gaze without hesitation. "I am scared," she admitted softly. "But if we stop helping people when they need it most, what's the point of any of this? My daughter reminds me of that every single day. She's the reason I keep going." The man ate slowly, letting out small sounds of appreciation that warmed something deep inside Chenise. For those few minutes, the exhaustion on his face seemed to lift just a little. He looked more at peace, like this simple late-night meal had given him a moment to breathe again. Even with the security camera blinking in the corner, Chenise felt no regret. Something told her this small act of kindness mattered more than she could understand right now. The tall man finished his meal slowly, taking his time like he was truly enjoying every bite. When he was done, he waved Chenise over. His eyes were softer now, no longer as heavy as when he first walked in. "That was one of the best meals I've had in a long time," he said, his voice low and full of real gratitude. "You didn't have to stay open for me. Thank you for the kindness tonight. It means more than you'll ever know." Chenise felt a warm flush in her cheeks. "I'm just glad you got to eat," she replied gently. "Nobody should go to bed hungry. Everyone needs a little peace sometimes." She reached for the check, but he was already laying several bills on the table. "Keep the change," he said quietly, then stood up tall, gave her one last nod, and walked out into the dark. The diner was completely silent now. Chenise locked the door, then sat down at the booth he had just left. Her fingers trembled as she counted the money. 100, 200, 3, $500. Tears welled up in her eyes and spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. She covered her mouth with her hand, trying not to sob out loud in the empty restaurant. This was exactly what Destiny needed for basketball camp. No more choosing between rent and her daughter's dreams. No more telling her, maybe next year. Chenise clutched the bills to her chest, shoulders shaking with quiet sobs of relief and gratitude. "Thank you. Whoever you are," she whispered through her tears. "You just gave my baby her chance." She locked up the diner at 12:30 a.m. and stepped outside, feeling lighter than she had in years, like a heavy weight had finally been lifted from her heart. The night air felt fresher, the stars a little brighter. A few blocks away, a black SUV pulled away from the curb. Inside, Michael Jordan leaned back in his seat with a small, satisfied smile. He had seen everything he needed to see. As the city lights passed by, he was already planning what came next for the kind waitress who had chosen compassion over rules. The next morning came too quickly. Sunlight streamed through the small kitchen window as Chenise made pancakes, adding chocolate chips in the shape of a basketball, just like Destiny loved. Her daughter bounced into the room already wearing her school basketball jersey, dribbling an imaginary ball between her legs. "Mama, guess what? Coach says I might make team captain this year," Destiny said, her face glowing with excitement. She did a quick spin move and pretended to shoot a three-pointer. "Watch this!" Chenise laughed and pulled her into a tight hug, breathing in the familiar smell of her daughter's hair. For a moment, everything felt perfect. She had decided not to tell Destiny about the late-night customer yet. She wanted to surprise her with the camp news later. "Breakfast is ready, baby," Chenise said, setting the plates on the table. They ate together, laughing and talking about basketball dreams. Chenise felt a quiet happiness she hadn't felt in a long time. The $500 from last night was safely tucked in her bag. Today felt like the start of something good. But that feeling didn't last. As soon as Chenise walked into Jerry's diner for her day shift, Brad's voice cut through the air like a knife. "My office. Now." He stood by his desk with his arms crossed, the security footage already playing on his computer screen. The timestamp clearly showed 11:47 p.m. Chenise's stomach dropped. "Brad, I can explain. You know the rules," he snapped, pointing at the screen. "No customers after 11:30, no exceptions. You served him anyway." She tried to stay calm. "He just needed a meal. He looked so tired. Nothing bad happened." Brad shook his head, his face hard. "I've warned you before about making exceptions. This is the last straw." He held out his hand. "Apron and name tag. You're fired." Chenise felt the room spin. Her voice broke as she pleaded. "I've given 8 years here, Brad. 8 years. I have a little girl to raise. Please, don't take away our last hope." Tears stung her eyes, but Brad remained unmoved, his expression cold and final. He didn't say another word. Chenise's hands shook as she unpinned her name tag. Just like that, everything she had worked so hard for was gone. Chenise walked out of Jerry's diner like a ghost, her legs barely carrying her to the old Toyota. The name tag felt heavy in her trembling hand. 8 years. Gone. Just like that. She climbed into the driver's seat, closed the door, and stared blankly at the dashboard, trying to catch her breath. The world felt like it was spinning too fast. Her phone buzzed loudly on the passenger seat. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Hello?" Her voice came out shaky. "Is this Chenise Williams?" a calm professional woman asked. "Yes." "This is her. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Michael Jordan. He'd like to meet with you this morning at the Hornets office. Can you be there?" Chenise's heart slammed against her ribs. Michael Jordan? The tall man from last night? For a second, she forgot how to breathe. I guess I'm available now," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. She started driving downtown, but her mind was a storm. What if this was a trick? What if Jordan was upset she had pretended not to recognize him? What if she was about to walk into another humiliation right after losing her job? Her hands shook on the steering wheel as doubts screamed in her head. "You're just a waitress. You don't belong in that world. This is probably going to make everything worse." A few miles later, the pressure became too much. Chenise quickly pulled into a small parking lot and turned off the engine. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against the steering wheel as hot tears streamed down her face. Her whole body shook with quiet sobs. "Why is this happening?" she whispered brokenly. "I was just trying to be kind. I have a little girl depending on me. Please, God, give me the strength to keep going. Don't let this destroy us." She sat there for several long minutes, crying out the fear and exhaustion. Then, slowly, she wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and started the car again. Her heart was still racing, but a quiet determination had settled in. She didn't know what waited for her at the Hornets office, but she had to find out. For destiny. For herself. She couldn't run away now. Chenise's stomach was in knots as she stepped off the elevator. Her old waitress uniform felt embarrassing under the bright lights of the fancy office building. "This is crazy," she thought. "What if he's angry? What if he brought me here just to scold me for pretending not to recognize him? I just lost my job. Now I might be in even bigger trouble." Her hands were cold and clammy as she followed the assistant down the quiet hallway. Every step made her more nervous. When she finally entered the large sunlit office, Michael Jordan was standing by the window. He turned around, and Chenise felt her breath catch. Without the baseball cap, he looked even taller and more commanding. She suddenly felt very small. "Please sit down," he said with a warm smile, gesturing to a comfortable chair across from his desk. Chenise sat carefully, her back stiff with fear. Jordan looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "First, I want to apologize for not telling you who I was last night," he said gently. "I needed to see how you treated people when you thought no one important was watching." Chenise's eyes widened. "So, it really was you? I wasn't imagining things." Jordan nodded. It was me. I've been visiting different businesses around Charlotte for weeks, looking for someone special. And I kept coming back to Jerry's because of you, Chenise. He leaned forward, his voice serious but kind. Last night, you broke the rules to help a stranger even though it could have cost you your job. Why did you do it? Chenise swallowed hard, her voice soft but honest. I only saw a tired man who needed kindness. Who you were didn't matter in that moment. You looked like you'd had a really long, hard day, and everyone deserves a warm meal and a little respect. I was scared of getting in trouble, but I couldn't turn you away. It just didn't feel right. Jordan studied her face carefully, then smiled, a real, warm smile that reached his eyes. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. I've got plenty of people with fancy degrees and big titles working for me. What I really need is someone who leads with their heart, someone who understands struggle because they've lived it every single day, someone like you. He stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. I want you to run the new community outreach program for my foundation. It's about giving kids, especially those who don't have much support, a real chance to chase their dreams through basketball and education. Chenise sat there stunned, her mind spinning with fear, disbelief, and a tiny spark of hope. This moment felt too big, too impossible. But as she looked at Michael Jordan, she realized her life might never be the same again. Jordan slid a thick folder across the desk toward Chenise. This is the full offer, he said. The salary is more than double what you were making with both jobs. It includes full health insurance, retirement benefits, and free access to all our youth basketball programs for Destiny. Chenise opened the folder with trembling hands. When she saw the numbers, her eyes widened in disbelief. It was life-changing money. But almost immediately, doubt crashed over her. I don't know if I can do this, Mr. Jordan, she said, her voice small. I've never run big programs before. I don't have a college degree. I'm just a waitress who's been trying to survive. What if I mess everything up? Jordan looked at her with steady, understanding eyes. Chenise, I've seen hundreds of people with impressive resumes who don't have half the heart you do. You've been helping people your whole life, sneaking extra food to kids, staying late for elderly customers, putting your daughter first, even when you're exhausted. That's the kind of leader I need. Not perfect. Real. He gently pushed the folder closer to her. Take this home. Read it carefully. Talk to your daughter. Sleep on it. This job isn't about being perfect from day one. It's about caring enough to show up and try. I believe you're the right person for this. The question is, do you believe in yourself? Chenise held the folder tightly against her chest as she left the building. The weight of it felt both terrifying and hopeful. When she got home, Destiny was waiting on the couch. Chenise sat down and told her daughter the whole story. From the late-night customer getting fired to the shocking meeting with Michael Jordan. She showed her the folder and explained what the job could mean for their future. Destiny listened with wide eyes. When Chenise finished, her daughter suddenly wrapped her arms around her in a tight hug. Don't be scared, Mom, Destiny whispered. We've faced hard times before. We always make it through. I believe in you. You're the strongest person I know. Chenise hugged her back, tears slipping down her cheeks. In her daughter's arms, the fear felt a little smaller. For the first time all day, she allowed herself to imagine a better future, not just for them, but for many other kids too. That evening, Chenise and Destiny drove to their favorite park, the one with the old basketball court where Destiny had learned to dribble years ago. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in soft orange and pink. They sat together on their usual bench under the big oak tree, the same spot where they had celebrated many small victories and cried through tough times. Chenise opened the folder again and showed Destiny all the details. This job is a huge step, baby. I'd be helping lots of kids, not just serving food anymore. But I'm scared. What if I'm not good enough? Destiny looked at the papers quietly for a moment, and then reached over and took her mother's hand. Mom, you've always been good enough for me. You work so hard, you're kind to everyone, and you never quit even when things get really tough. Mr. Jordan saw that in you. I see it too." They sat side by side as the breeze rustled the leaves above them. Destiny even helped her mother type out the reply message on her phone. Together, they wrote, "I would be honored to accept the position. Thank you for believing in me when I was struggling to believe in myself." After sending the message, Chenise pulled Destiny close and held her tight. "You are the reason I never give up," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Every hard shift, every worry, every time I wanted to quit, I kept going because of you." Destiny hugged her back just as tightly. "And I'll keep going because of you, Mama. We're a team." They stayed there under the old oak tree as the sky grew darker, watching a few kids still playing basketball on the court. The sound of bouncing balls and laughter filled the air. For the first time since the morning storm, Chenise felt a real sense of peace. Whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. The next morning, Chenise stood in front of her closet for a long time before choosing her late mother's simple navy church dress. It was the nicest thing she owned. She looked at herself in the mirror, smoothing the fabric nervously. "You can do this," she whispered, hoping to borrow some of her mother's quiet strength. When she arrived at the Hornets building, her heart was racing. On the 43rd floor, Patricia led her into a large conference room. Several people in suits sat around the long table, but mixed among them were faces she recognized: Mrs. Johnson, Tommy's mother, and Coach Johnson. Michael Jordan stood up with a warm smile. "Everyone, this is Chenise Williams, our new Director of Community Outreach." Then the stories began. Mrs. Johnson spoke first, her voice soft but steady. "Chenise stayed late every Tuesday, even after her shift ended, just to sit with me and listen to stories about my late husband. She made me feel less alone in this world." Several board members nodded with warm smiles, clearly moved. Tommy's mother wiped tears from her eyes. "She used to sneak extra pancakes for my son when we were staying at the shelter, and after hours, she helped me fill out job applications. Because of her, I found steady work. She changed our lives." A few people in the room murmured with approval, their expressions full of respect. Coach Johnson added, "She always volunteers to clean up the gym after games, even when her own daughter isn't playing. She does it with a smile, like it's the most natural thing in the world." The room filled with quiet nods and gentle applause. Chenise sat there, tears rolling down her cheeks. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "I never knew anyone was really watching," she said, wiping her eyes. "I was just trying to be kind, the way my mother taught me. I didn't think any of it mattered to anyone." The room was quiet for a moment. Jordan looked at her with deep respect. "That's exactly why you're perfect for this job, Chenise. You do good when no one is looking. That's real character." In that moment, surrounded by the people whose lives she had quietly touched, Chenise felt something deep inside her begin to heal. The fear was still present, but so was a growing sense of purpose and belonging. A few days later, Chenise brought Destiny to the Foundation's state-of-the-art training facility. The moment they walked into the bright gym with its shiny floors and professional equipment, Destiny's face lit up with pure excitement. She spent the next hour receiving special one-on-one training. Chenise watched from the sidelines, her heart swelling as she saw her daughter move with confidence she had never seen before. Destiny was focused, quick, and smiling the entire time. After the session, the head coach approached them. "Destiny has real talent. We'd like to offer her a full scholarship into our advanced youth program." Destiny thought for a moment, then shook her head gently. "Thank you so much," she said politely, "but I don't want special treatment if other kids can't have the same chance. Jenny, Marcus, Tommy's sister, they should get this opportunity too." Chenise stood frozen, overwhelmed with emotion. Her little girl, only 8 years old, was turning down something most kids could only dream of, all because she wanted everyone to have a fair shot. In that moment, Chenise felt a wave of pride so strong It brought tears to her eyes. "This is my daughter," she thought. "She's already becoming a better person than I could have ever hoped for." Later that afternoon, Chenise watched from the bleachers as Destiny stayed behind to help the younger kids. She patiently taught them how to dribble, encouraging them with the same warm words Chenise had always used. "You're doing great. Keep going. I believe in you." Chenise couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They flowed freely down her cheeks as she watched her daughter laughing and helping the little ones. Her chest felt so full of pride and love that it almost hurt. She had sacrificed so much for Destiny, and now she was seeing the beautiful result, a kind, strong, generous girl who wanted to lift others up. In that moment, Chenise knew without a doubt that accepting this job was the right decision, not just for their future, but for the kind of person her daughter was growing up to be. A few weeks into her new role, Chenise stayed late at the office one evening, reviewing the financial reports for the upcoming scholarship program. At first, the numbers looked normal, but the more she looked, the more something felt wrong. Large sums of money were being moved between accounts with vague descriptions. Money appeared, then disappeared with no proper records. Her heart started racing. She checked again and again, hoping she was mistaken. But the irregularities were clear. Hundreds of thousands of dollars that didn't add up. This wasn't a simple error. It looked serious enough to destroy the entire foundation if word got out. That night, Chenise couldn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed in the dark, staring at the wall while Destiny slept peacefully in the next room. Her mind was a storm of fear and conflict. If I report this, everything could collapse. I could lose this job. Destiny might lose her training, the new apartment, our stability, everything we've finally gained. The thought made her feel sick, but another voice inside her kept getting louder. If you stay silent, you're letting the same system that hurt so many kids continue. What kind of example are you setting for your daughter? She paced the small apartment for hours, tears stinging her eyes. The weight of the decision felt crushing. By 3 a.m., exhausted and emotionally drained, she couldn't take it anymore. With shaking hands, Chenise picked up her phone and dialed Jordan's private number. It rang several times. When he finally answered, her voice came out weak and trembling. "Mr. Jordan, I'm so sorry to call this late," she whispered, trying not to wake Destiny. "I found some serious problems in the foundation's accounts. The numbers, they don't make sense. I think we need to talk about it as soon as possible." She held her breath, waiting for his reply, terrified of what might happen next. The next morning, Chenise walked into Jordan's office with heavy steps, her eyes tired from lack of sleep. Her hands were still shaking slightly as she sat down. "Mr. Jordan, I'm sorry for calling so late," she said, her voice quiet. "But I couldn't stay silent about what I saw in the accounts. I know it might cost me everything, but those kids deserve better." Jordan looked at her for a long moment, then his serious face broke into a warm, proud smile. "Chenise, those irregularities were a test. I changed the numbers on purpose to see what you would do." Chenise's eyes widened in shock. "A test?" "Yes," he said gently. "And you passed with flying colors. You chose honesty and integrity even when it could have destroyed your new life, your job, your security, your daughter's future. That kind of character can't be taught." He slid a new contract across the desk. "Because of that, I want to promote you to executive director." Chenise felt a rush of emotions, relief, disbelief, and overwhelming gratitude all at once. Tears stung her eyes as she stared at the paper. "Executive director? Me? I was just scared I'd lose everything." Jordan nodded. "That fear is exactly what made your choice meaningful." She took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. "If I accept this, I have one condition. I don't want to help only the top 20 kids. I want every child who applies to have a real chance, even if the scholarships are smaller. No one should be left out. Jordan's smile grew even wider. Now that's exactly why you're perfect for this role. With a heart full of renewed purpose and quiet determination, Chenise picked up the pen. Her hand trembled slightly as she signed her name. For the first time, she didn't feel like an imposter. She felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. As she left the office, a single tear slipped down her cheek. This time, it was a tear of hope. That afternoon, after signing the contract, Chenise felt overwhelmed with emotions. As she drove through her old neighborhood, painful memories she had buried for years suddenly came rushing back. She remembered being a scared little girl, watching her single mother work exhausting shifts at a small diner, just like she once did. There were cold nights when they had no heat, weeks when dinner was just rice and a little salt. But her mother would hold her close and whisper, "Baby, kindness is the only thing in this world that multiplies when you give it away. Even when we have nothing, we still have that." Those words had carried Chenise through every hard year of her life. Drawn by an ache she couldn't ignore, she drove to the old homeless shelter. The moment she walked through the doors, familiar faces lit up. Tommy's mother hugged her tightly, and several others gathered around with warm smiles and teary eyes. Then little Marcus, the boy she used to sneak extra meals for, ran straight into her arms. He hugged her waist so tightly it almost hurt. "Miss Chenise," he said with a shaky voice, "you were the first person who ever believed in me. You told me I was smart and could be anything I wanted. I'm doing really good in school now. Because of you." Chenise couldn't hold back anymore. She dropped to her knees and hugged him back, tears streaming down her face. The pain of her own childhood, the love of her mother, and the quiet impact she had made on these lives all crashed over her at once. When she finally left the shelter and stepped back into the sunlight, something inside her had changed. The fear that had been lingering in her heart was replaced by a fierce, burning determination. She wiped her tears and whispered to herself, "I won't let any of these kids go through what I went through. Not anymore. I'm going to fight for every single one of them." Her steps felt lighter, her purpose clearer than ever before. Just when Chenise thought things were finally settling down, she discovered something even worse. While reviewing the latest financial reports late one night, she found a much bigger problem. Someone had been recording promised donations as if the money had already arrived. It made the foundation's balance look much healthier than it really was. This wasn't a test anymore. This was real. Chenise felt a cold wave of fear wash over her. If this got out, the foundation could lose everything. Programs would shut down. Kids would lose their chances. And she might lose the life she had just started building for Destiny. She stayed at the office for hours, digging through spreadsheets and documents alone. The clock passed midnight, then 2 a.m. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen, and her head throbbed with exhaustion and stress. Every new piece of information made her feel more overwhelmed. She kept thinking about all the children who were counting on this foundation, including her own daughter. When she finally dragged herself home just before dawn, Destiny was already awake, sitting on the couch in her pajamas. "Mom?" Destiny said softly, noticing the worry etched on her mother's face. "What's wrong? You look really sad." Chenise tried to hold it together, but the moment her daughter asked, the dam broke. She sat down and pulled Destiny into her arms. Tears flowed freely as she told her about the financial problems and how scared she was of failing everyone. Destiny hugged her tightly, her own eyes filling with tears. "It's okay to be scared, Mama. We've been through hard things before." They cried together on the couch, mother and daughter holding each other in the quiet early morning light. Then Destiny whispered, "Let's pray, Mom, just like you taught me." They held hands and prayed for guidance, strength, and the courage to do what was right. When they finished, Chenise felt a little less alone. Even though the crisis was far from over, Her daughter's love gave her the strength to keep fighting. Chenise stood at the head of the long conference table, her heart hammering so hard she could barely breathe. Her hands trembled as she held the thick report she had stayed up all night preparing. Every board member was watching her, including Jordan. She took a deep breath and began, her voice shaking at first. "I've found serious problems in our financial reporting. We've been counting money that hasn't actually come in yet. It makes our foundation look much stronger than it really is. If we don't fix this, we could lose everything we've built." The room fell deathly silent. Chenise felt tears burning in her eyes, but she forced herself to continue. "I know this is scary to hear," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "But those kids out there, the ones counting on us for a chance, they deserve the truth. Real dreams need real money, not false hope. I'd rather lose my job today than stay quiet and watch this foundation hurt the very children we're supposed to help." Her hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the edge of the table. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she finished. "I'm ready to accept whatever happens, but I won't hide the truth." The silence that followed felt endless. Then Jordan slowly stood up, his expression full of pride and respect. "Chenise," he said softly, "you've just passed the real test, the one that matters most." He walked over and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Those issues are real, but they're not from greed or corruption. Our accountant was desperately trying to help more kids, the same way you used to stretch food at the diner to feed hungry families. You chose honesty even when it could have cost you everything. That kind of integrity cannot be taught." Chenise let out a shaky breath as relief flooded through her. Tears continued to fall, but this time they were mixed with hope. She had risked it all, and it hadn't destroyed her. For the first time, she truly felt like she belonged in this role. A few days later, Jordan called Chenise into his office. "There's something I want you to know," he said. "Remember Brad, your old manager?" Chenise nodded, her body tensing at the name. "He was so strict about the rules because he's a single father, too," Jordan explained. "He was working extra shifts and cutting corners everywhere just to save enough money to send his daughter to basketball camp. He was scared of losing his job and failing her. The same fear you've carried." Chenise sat quietly, processing the words. All the anger she had held toward Brad slowly started to melt away. She understood that kind of desperate love all too well. "I'd like to give him a second chance," she said softly. "If he's willing to work with us, I want him to manage the first youth center we're opening." Jordan smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." Later that week, Chenise met Brad at the nearly finished youth center. He looked nervous and tired as he stood in front of her. "I was wrong," Brad said, his voice rough with emotion. "I treated you badly because I was scared. I thought being strict would protect my daughter's future. I didn't realize I was hurting good people along the way." Chenise looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke gently. "I understand. I've been scared too. Scared of failing my own child. We both made mistakes, but I believe people deserve second chances. I'm offering you one. Will you help us turn this place into something that gives kids real hope?" Brad's eyes filled with tears. He nodded slowly. "Thank you, Chenise. I won't let you down again." They shook hands, and in that moment, something heavy lifted between them. Old wounds began to heal as two parents who had fought hard for their children found a way to move forward together. Over the next few months, Chenise threw herself completely into her new role. She led the project to transform old Jerry's diner locations into modern youth centers with basketball courts, study areas, and mentoring programs. Every day was filled with meetings, site visits, and planning sessions. She worked long hours, often coming home exhausted but fulfilled. But the heavy workload started to take a toll. Some nights after putting Destiny to bed, Chenise would sit alone at the kitchen table and feel a quiet sadness. She missed the simple rhythm of her old life, the familiar faces at the diner, the satisfaction of serving warm meals, and the small, everyday moments of kindness. The new job was bigger, but it also felt lonelier sometimes. One particularly tiring evening, Chenise stood in the empty parking lot of a diner that was being renovated. She looked at the construction equipment and half-finished basketball court and felt a wave of self-doubt wash over her. "Do I really deserve all of this?" she whispered to herself. "I'm just a waitress who got lucky. What if I'm not smart enough or strong enough to lead something this big? What if I disappoint everyone?" She thought about her mother, about destiny, and about all the kids who would soon walk through these doors. The weight of responsibility felt enormous. For a few minutes, she allowed herself to feel scared and unsure. But then she took a deep breath, wiped her eyes, and straightened her shoulders. Even with the doubt, she refused to quit. This dream was bigger than her fears. She had come too far to turn back now. The gym was packed with excited families as Destiny finished her final tryout for the junior national team. When the coach called her name and told her she had made the team, Destiny let out a joyful scream and ran straight into her mother's arms. "I did it, Mama," she cried, laughing and crying at the same time. Chenise hugged her tightly, tears of pure happiness streaming down her face. "I'm so proud of you, baby. You worked so hard for this." A few weeks later, the grand opening of the first Jerry's Youth Center arrived. The old diner sign still hung proudly inside, but the space had been completely transformed. The parking lot was now a beautiful basketball court, and the dining area had become a bright space filled with training equipment, study tables, and smiling kids. Many familiar faces from Chenise's old life showed up. Mrs. Johnson, Tommy and his family, Coach Johnson, and even Brad with his daughter. They all stood together as the ribbon was cut. Then it was Chenise's turn to speak. She stepped up to the microphone, her heart full. "A few months ago, I was just a tired waitress working late nights," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "I never dreamed I would be standing here today. This journey started with one small act of kindness, serving a tired stranger after closing time. That decision cost me my job, but it gave me something much bigger. It taught me that the smallest choices can change everything." She looked out at the crowd, tears shining in her eyes. To every parent struggling, every child who feels like they don't have a chance, this place is for you. Dreams don't have to stay dreams. We're going to fight for them together. The audience was silent for a moment, then erupted into loud applause. Many people were wiping tears from their eyes. Mrs. Johnson hugged her tightly afterward, whispering, "Your mother would be so proud." Chenise stood there, surrounded by laughter, bouncing basketballs, and hopeful faces. For the first time, she truly felt that her long, difficult journey had been worth every single tear. Just when everything seemed to be going well, a sudden crisis hit. A local news story questioned the foundation's rapid growth, suggesting it was too good to be true. The pressure from the media became intense, with reporters calling non-stop and some donors starting to pull back. On top of that, Destiny came down with a bad fever and had to miss several practices. Chenise felt completely overwhelmed. Late one night, after a difficult call with worried board members, Chenise sat on the edge of her bed, exhausted and defeated. Tears rolled down her face as she whispered, "I can't do this anymore. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I should just quit before I let everyone down." The next morning, Destiny, still weak from her fever, found her mother sitting quietly in the kitchen. "Mom, what's wrong?" she asked. Chenise broke down and told her everything: the media pressure, the fear of failing, and how tired she felt. Destiny crawled into her lap and hugged her tightly. "You taught me to keep going even when it's hard," Destiny said softly. "All those kids at the center, they need you. I need you. You're the strongest person I know, Mama." Later that day, when Chenise visited the youth center, a group of children ran up to her. One little girl handed her a drawing of them playing basketball together. "Miss Chenise, thank you for believing in us," she said. That simple moment broke something open inside Chenise. She realized she couldn't quit, not now, not when so many people were counting on her. With fresh tears in her eyes, she stood up taller. The fear was still there, but so was a deep, quiet strength. She called the board and the media back with renewed confidence, addressed the concerns honestly, and reassured everyone that the Foundation's heart was in the right place. By the end of the week, the storm had passed. Chenise had faced her biggest challenge yet, and she had come through it stronger than ever. 6 months later, the Jordan Youth Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations. New centers had opened in several cities, transforming old diners into places full of laughter, bouncing basketballs, and hopeful dreams. Chenise had become a quiet force behind it all. One golden afternoon, she stood on the basketball court of the very first youth center with Destiny beside her. The sun was warm, and the sound of children playing filled the air. Destiny was now thriving on the junior national team, but she still came back every week to help the younger kids. As they watched a group of children running drills, a familiar tall figure walked toward them wearing an old baseball cap. Michael Jordan smiled as he approached. "You did it, Chenise," he said warmly. "You built something that will last long after all of us are gone." Chenise felt tears rise in her eyes. She looked at her daughter, then at all the happy kids around them, and her heart overflowed. Destiny leaned against her mother. "Mama, are you happy?" Chenise wrapped her arms around her daughter and held her close. "I once thought kindness cost me everything," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "But it actually gave me more than I ever dreamed. It gave me you, this work, and all these beautiful moments." They stood together in a tight embrace as children laughed and played around them. In the background, Jordan watched with a proud smile, the same cap from that fateful night still on his head. As the sun began to set, the camera slowly pulled back, revealing the entire community transformed, families together, kids chasing dreams, and lives changed forever, all because one tired waitress chose kindness over fear on a quiet night. And this was only the beginning. 6 months later, under the warm golden sunlight, Chenise stood on the basketball court of the first youth center, holding her daughter's hand. The place was alive with joy. Children laughing, balls bouncing, and dreams coming true all around them. Michael Jordan, still wearing that same old baseball cap from the night they first met, stood nearby with a quiet, proud smile. Chenise looked at Destiny, then at all the happy faces surrounding them, and felt her heart fill with overwhelming gratitude. She pulled her daughter close and whispered softly, "I once thought kindness cost me everything, but it actually gave me more than I ever dreamed possible." They embraced tightly as the children's laughter echoed around them. Slowly, the view pulled back, revealing an entire community transformed, families healing, kids chasing dreams, and lives forever changed. All because one tired single mother chose kindness over fear on one ordinary night. This wasn't the end. It was only the beautiful beginning of something much greater. This story leaves us with powerful lessons we can carry into our own lives. Kindness never goes to waste. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you do is the one that feels like it costs you the most. Always choose kindness, even when it's hard. Big dreams often start with small actions. Chenise never imagined she would change an entire community. But one simple, sincere act opened doors she never knew existed. True power lies in the heart. Degrees, titles, or money matter far less than having a heart that genuinely cares and has the courage to do what is right. Believe in yourself even when you're afraid. Chenise wanted to quit many times, but her love for her daughter and the children gave her strength. Real courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing despite being scared. Everyone deserves a second chance. Both Chenise and Brad were given opportunities to grow. Never underestimate a person's ability to change. Today, try doing one small act of kindness for someone. You never know. It might be the beginning of a beautiful chain that changes not only their life, but yours as well. Kindness always wins. Always.